Hello there, people of the internet. This is a good question. Why did most countries use bolt-action rifles in World War II? Self-loading technology was absolutely available, and there were plenty of countries who knew about it. Heck, it had been available since World War I and was still being constantly developed and improved upon, and by World War II it was actually pretty significantly good. But why did countries still decide to use bolt-action rifles? This right here is a Mosnagant bolt-action rifle, 5 rounds of 7.62 by 54R. That's a 150 grain bullet, moving about 2,800 feet per second. Maybe a little bit slower from that shorter barrel right there. But the British also used bolt-action rifles. We got the SMLE #1 Mark III here. However, you saw these along with the #4 Mark I, but they're both bolt-action rifles, chambered in .303 British, same bullet weight, same velocity as 7.62 by 54R. Austria rifles, the Austrian M95, these right here are also extraordinarily common during that particular time period. Tons of Mausers out there. As a matter of fact, I've got several Mausers here that I can go selecting through. There were a lot of countries that used the Mauser, but I'm sure that most people are probably going to think of the Germans. The Italians had their Carcano rifles. I got one of those sitting right here, but long story short, the general theme that I'm trying to get at here is it seems like pretty much every country was using a bolt-action rifle of some kind by the time World War II came around, even though self-loading technology was absolutely a thing that existed. As a matter of fact, the United States had the M1 Garand, or Garand, however it is you want to pronounce that. And this rifle right here is a self-loading semi-automatic 30-06 that was the main battle rifle of the United States Army by the time it found itself in World War II. So just the United States having a semi-auto self-loading rifle immediately means that, that the technology was 100% there and available. The thing is, countries that were involved in World War II did try making semi-auto self-loading rifles. As a matter of fact, I got a good example right here. This is a French MOS 4956, and the general design of this rifle started in, I think it was 1944, somewhere around that time period. But the bottom line is the idea of a country adopting a semi-auto self-loading rifle 100% did exist during this particular time period. The thing is, whenever you have a world war come marching onto your doorstep, it kind of puts a halt to all of your experimental and development processes, because you have to put all of your resources into your already known and existing firearms technology. So what existed at the time period was bolt-action rifles. These had been around since the late 1800s, as a matter of fact. Not necessarily the M44, but the Mosnagant style rifle, the Mauser 98 action, or even earlier variations like the 93 and so on. Italian Carcanos, the British Lee Enfield and Lee Metford rifles. All of these had been around for a very, very long time, and countries already knew that they were proven designs. Unlike adopting a brand new self-loading firearm, they chose to go with what they knew already worked and worked extraordinarily well. On top of that, their machinery that they already had set up inside their country was already set up to produce these bolt-action rifles. On top of that, producing a bolt-action rifle is significantly simpler and easier than producing a reliable semi-auto self-loading rifle. The United States was able to pull that off with the M1 Garand, but this right here is definitely an anomaly, and this right here was done before wartime efforts really escalated. It wasn't until countries were starting to really see World War II crest over the horizon where they were like, all right, we need to adopt a better rifle, and then it showed up on their doorstep and they never got to finish the adoption of that new rifle. Their soldiers already had all of these bolt-action rifles, logistically speaking, adopting a completely new rifle with completely new manual of arms, with a completely new everything going on about it, while you're in the middle of an armed conflict is just not the easiest thing to do, especially when you have to dump the resources, your already limited resources, into the continuation and creation of already existing rifles with already existing tooling, let alone getting rid of that tooling to make new tooling for new completely different styles of guns. Especially during the later parts of the war, the countries that were rocking bolt-action rifles struggled to even make those bolt-action rifles. They were cutting corners and whatnot, and that's what last-ditch rifles are. Germany, they got rid of the... Let's see, where is that Mauser I just had? Germany, they got rid of the disassembly disc that was on their stock. This is a Yugoslavian Mauser, that's why there's not one there. But they got rid of their disassembly disc that was on their stock, and they actually just drilled a hole in their stock, and that was how you disassembled your rifle. Their rifles ended up coming without cleaning rods there at the end of the war. I think they even got rid of the bayonets. The rifle stocks themselves were just plywood. They didn't care about machining or anything like that, so everything was really, really crudely done. Any sort of weld work was just really bad on them. And if you can barely make bolt-action rifles like that, then setting up tooling and whatnot to be able to make semi-auto self-loading rifles and make them on such a mass scale to be able to give to all of your soldiers is just not going to happen. Germany was one of those that tried it. Like, we had the Gewehr 41 and then the Gewehr 43, and neither of them really worked out all that well. There was the adoption of the STG-44, which, for all intents and purposes, we are going to go ahead and include in this. But it was a completely new style of technology. It was effective, but it was a completely new style of technology that needed a completely new style of tooling, and on top of that, logistically speaking, they couldn't keep up with ammunition demands. The consumption of ammunition with a self-loading or full-auto rifle, especially a proprietary round like 8mm Kurtz, as opposed to the already vastly existing 8mm Mauser rifle round, it just lent itself to being a complete failure. So, because of logistics, because of already existing guns, already existing manual of arms, already existing tooling operations, etc., most countries ended up electing to continue to use their bolt-action rifles in the Second World War, even though better technology did exist. And many countries were trying to adopt that better technology. It just didn't work out. There were a lot of really, really heavy complications in World War II. In terms of logistics and in terms of the destruction of entire countries and the complete lack of resources that just made it impossible to move on from bolt-action rifles. And so most countries did not. Then you had countries like, say, Great Britain, who had guns that they could rock so fast that it didn't matter if they were semi-auto or not. So there we go. There's my 2 cents on why most countries were still rocking a bolt-action rifle in World War II. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen.
a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.